Hello everyone, my name is Aarti and you're watching HW News. Let us give you a quick update as to what is happening in Sri Lanka right now. The protest and the violence has escalated since Wednesday morning in the island nation of Sri Lanka as angry protesters have taken to streets and after especially the president of the country, Gota Rajapaksa, has fled to Maldives. Yes, that's right. This morning there was news that Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the president of the country, has fled to Maldives. He landed in Malé, which is the capital of Maldives, along with his wife and two other bodyguards. And from there, he is reportedly going to go to another Asian countries. There are reports saying that, speculative reports that he might be going to United Arab Emirates, and there he will be staying there for quite some time until the anger back home subsides. So that is what the news is about the president fleeing the country. But back home in Sri Lanka, the violence and protest have only escalated. The protest had started back when the country was sliding into an economic crisis, and economic crisis so grave that the petrol was being rationed. People were finding it difficult to get food. People were finding it difficult to feed themselves, and the entire country was going into an economic crisis, a major economic crisis, so much so that the newly appointed Prime Minister of the country, then Prime Minister of the country, Ranil Wickremsinghe, had announced a bankruptcy in Sri Lanka. So that was the grave economic crisis in the country. On the backdrop of that, the president was being pressurized to step down from the post of president, from the post of chief of the country. Gotabaya Rajapaksa was also supposed to step down from the post of president today itself, but before that he has fled the country along with his wife and two other bodyguards. Now, president was supposed to step down today and make a way for a unity government to be formed in the country, and on July 20th, the member of the parliament were supposed to elect a new president for the country. Meanwhile, the protesters are becoming more and more angrier. The protesters are taking over public institutions. We have seen in the last few days the protesters also took over the presidential palace. Crores of people gathered outside protesting "Go Gota, go, go Gota, go." That was the slogan that they were shouting outside the presidential palace, and in no time they broke the barricade and they entered the presidential palace and they stormed the presidential palace. Some of them we saw jumping in the swimming pool. We saw some of the peoples thronging the kitchen, eating whatever they could. Some of the people thronged the gyms, and we saw them exercising on the gym equipments. Some of them were playing piano, some of them were holding weddings on the one end. So it has become a sort of like a picnic spot for the entire country, especially the protesters who had thronged the presidential palace. On the other hand, we also saw the Prime Minister's home. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremsinghe also bore the anger of the protesters. His home was also vandalized. His home was set on fire by the protesters. But today, protesters are also demanding that Ranil Wickremsinghe should also resign as Prime Minister of the country. Meanwhile, the Speaker of the country has appointed Ranil Wickremsinghe as the acting president of the country, while Gotabaya Rajapaksa still remains as the president of Sri Lanka because he has not yet stepped down, and that is the precise reason why the military plane also allowed him to fly out of the country and go to Maldives. But the parliament, the Speaker of the parliament has appointed Ranil Wickremsinghe as the acting president of the country. Meanwhile, tear gas are being shelled at protesters. The angry protesters, as I said, have taken to streets. Some of them are indulging in vandalism as well. So the police force has been deployed in large numbers. The soldiers and STF has been deployed in large numbers. But there also seems a little bit of strange happenings in that particular sector. We can see there are reports that says that police on one hand is firing tear gas shells at the protesters. They are lathi charging the protesters outside the Prime Minister's official residence, where the protesters are trying to scale the wall, the boundary wall around the Prime Minister's home. The police is lathi charging on those protesters. On other hand, water cannons are also being used. Aerial firings have also been reported from that particular area. On the other hand, there are reports that soldier and STF appears to be standing down, and in fact they are helping protesters to get water. They are helping protesters to calm down who have faced the police brutality. So that is what the situation looks like in Sri Lanka right now. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka, as I said, has declared a state of emergency. However, curfew orders have also been ordered in western province of Sri Lanka. Aerial patrol by security forces have begun. Helicopters are patrolling the presidential palace, the prime minister's official residence, and other public institution areas so that the protesters do not indulge in vandalism. So aerial patrol by security forces has also started. Meanwhile, one very strange development, the Go Gota Go protesters, the Go Gota Go is the slogan that has been opted by the anti-government, anti-Rajapaksha clan protesters. These protesters have taken over the state TV, which is Rupavahini Corporation. This is the national TV corporation of the Sri Lanka, and they have taken over Rupavahini Corporation. Some of them also tried to broadcast a message, but in the meantime, moments after that, the broadcast was cut. So as of now, Ranil Wickremsinghe has been made acting president. The entire country, especially the Colombo, that is the capital of the country, seems to be reeling under a chaos, under massive protest and violence. Both security forces and protesters are engaged in a massive showdown between each other. The protesters are demanding that Gotabaya Rajapaksa should step down. Prime Minister, now the acting president Ranil Wickremsinghe, should also step down, whereas the Parliament is trying to figure out a constitutional remedy to this crisis, and it has made Ranil Wickremsinghe as the acting president, and emergency has been imposed in Sri Lanka. What happens next? We will let you know through updates as and when they come. Do let us know what you think about this in the comment box below. For more news and updates, you can log on to www.hwnews.in.